Hello, my name is Chris Moon and welcome to Grace United Church, 198 years. And I'm not going to speak to you for 198 years, but we have 198 years of history here that we'll share with you just in very few minutes. Some that you will not know. It's quite interesting. Grace United Church is probably the oldest house of worship in Brampton. It was first met in a tavern in 1822 north of Brampton. There was nothing here then. It was nothing but forest. The surveyors had just laid out a track which would later become Highway 10 Main Street, but at that point in time, it was simply a track through the forest. And a few hardy farmers had come in, chopped down some trees as pioneers, and they needed a place to gather and worship. And they did that at Salisbury's Tavern. The town really didn't get started until 1834 when the first streets were laid out, and it grew quite rapidly. This is a tremendously good farming area, and many people moved in. And many of them were Methodists. Grace United Church was originally a Methodist church. And the entire town was basically a Protestant town. And back then, though, before the town grew up, the way the people had some worship was there would be a Wesleyan Methodist minister. He would travel on horseback through the forest, calling on settlers miles apart. And meetings were held in the various homes or in that one meeting house that existed. After the town started to grow a bit, meetings were held in various locations and buildings over the years, and till 1867, when the Wesleyan Methodists built their own church on the site that we now stand, Grace United Church, 156 Main Street North. At that time, there were actually 3 Methodist churches in Brampton and 1 Presbyterian church, all within 3 blocks of each other. Later on, the one Episcopalian Methodist church became the Anglican Church, and the 2 remaining United churches, which were both Methodist churches, continued. This church, built in 1867, was a single aisle church, meaning there was one central door, and you would come in, there would be pews on either side. As the town grew, the congregation grew, and it was a very, very busy congregation. So 20 years later, they expanded the church mightily, made it the full width that it is today, quite wide, holds hundreds and hundreds of people in its large horseshoe gallery. It's constructed with beautiful cedar and constructions in the rafters, lovely oak pews, and anyone who comes through the door is really quite amazed. And one of our other presentations will be about the interior of the church. I do hope you'll watch it. I think you'll find it quite interesting. So that was the heyday from 1880s till about 1960s of Methodism and United Church. The church grew, so after the First World War, there was a big Sunday school wing added. A Cassavant pipe organ was installed in memory of the men from Grace United Church who served in World War I. There's also a video on that, and I hope you watch it. It is really very fascinating. Cassavant is a Quebec company that makes the Rolls-Royce of organs, and it was a great tribute to the church in memory of those people, and a great tribute in glory of God. In 1925, the 3 Methodist churches, Presbyterian and Congregational churches, all amalgamated to form the United Church of Canada. So many newcomers may not know what the United Church is. And the United Church really is Methodists, Presbyterians, and Congregationalists. Each congregation that forms the United Church still maintains many of its own roots. Grace United Church comes from the Wesleyan Methodist roots, and we continue to worship with some of those styles of worship. Again, the town grew rapidly from 1925 to 1960 when it outgrew the existing large building we had, and a big north wing was added. And that housed Sunday school and a large gymnasium meeting room. Even today, it's the largest public space in downtown Brampton to hold meetings. And it was bustling 24/7. In 1967, the church celebrated 100 years of the building of this building. Canada's celebration or centennial of Confederation was also the centennial of Grace United Church, and lots of celebrations were held in honor of that. In 1972, it was 150 years since the congregation first met in 1822. And then continuing on in its style of worship of the United Church and the Methodist Church, which was always a church that believed in social service and outreach. That the church banded together to build a large seniors residence in downtown Brampton, Grace Court. This was at a time when there were not seniors residences, and it was really very much needed. Further outreach kept up with this church reaching out into the community when the North Wing that was built in 1960 was created. It was created into Grace Place. And Grace Place is the whole part of the church that is not the sanctuary, and it's dedicated to community service. It's now a community center where many, many groups meet. It truly is going 24/7. There will be 150 people who will have had free breakfast there this morning, as they do 365 days a year. And sometimes you will see, as you drive by Grace Church, you will see people lying on the front steps. Those are the poorest and many homeless people in our community. They do find Grace Church to be a place of sanctuary, which is what Christ intended that churches be. 3 years ago, in 2017, we had a 150th anniversary of the Grace United Church Sanctuary, and more celebrations. And we joined in with Canada's 150 celebrations that year. This year, 2020, 198 years since the congregation first met in Brampton and has been meeting continuously, bringing the Word of God to our community, serving our community in the manner that Jesus calls us to do. And you can take in our services. I would love to invite you to our service on 10:30 Sunday morning, but you can't do that right now with the pandemic. But we are online with a service that is attended by many people literally across the country through Zoom and Facebook, Sunday mornings at 10:30 at graceunitedbrampton.com. So please join us, and if you do come out when the church is open, come in and see the building I'm talking about. I'm sure you will be pleased. Thanks very much for your attention.